What's going on, you guys? This is your boy RBG, aka the Random Black Gamer, bringing you another video on Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. As we count down the days to the Super Limit Breaking Neo DLC, I thought it would be a good idea to talk about some of the characters we could potentially see in it. Because even though Bandai Namco announced that they'll be releasing 30 new characters, we have only seen 27 of them in total. And if we're going to be honest, there's a high probability that that number is bound to increase for future DLCs, so we're going to talk about that today. But before we do so, I want to ask you guys to do me the biggest favor and like this video. Yeah, I know it's a bit annoying getting this request at the very beginning of a video before you watch it in its entirety, but YouTube's algorithm encourages it. So if you rock with your boy, and you know I'm going to bring you that awesome content, then smash that like button. But if by any chance you just so happen to be new to this channel and you feel like I've wasted 10 minutes of your time that you can't get back, then feel free to retract that like and give it a dislike. Just rate the video. But yeah guys, I'm pretty sure you're excited about the prospect of receiving over 30 new playable characters, which is substantially larger than any of the previous DLC packs we've had. Like the fact that this DLC is addressing our desires in ways we never could have imagined, it gives me hope that Spike Chunoft isn't going to be drip feeding us all these characters like they did in the previous seasons. Not to mention that until we get some new content for Dragon Ball Super, most of these characters are going to come from the previous titles, and that's what I want to talk about. I actually want to mention some of the characters that we have yet to see on the roster or in the upcoming DLC, but there's a strong possibility that they will, since we got 27 characters revealed and there's currently 3 more slots left since we have 30 in all. And the first batch of characters that I feel like I need to talk about actually come from the RB series, Raging Blast, particularly Raging Blast 2. And I know some of you are going to argue that this isn't necessarily a Tenkaichi game, but it is a spiritual successor of those games since it's built off a similar foundation just with tweaked mechanics. The best way I can describe it is that it's basically what Burst Limit was to the Budokai games. Not only is Raging Blast 2 the next gen brother of the Tenkaichi / Sparking series, it's also the only Dragon Ball Z fighting game to feature these characters, which says a lot because RB2 came out almost 20 years ago, and the characters that I'm about to mention have strong connections to other characters who have been featured consistently in Dragon Ball Z fighting games. And the first two that I gotta talk about right off the rip would be androids 14 and 15. I'm not sure what it is about these guys, but for whatever reason they never leave the cutting room floor when it comes to getting added to a Dragon Ball Z fighting game roster. But one would think that if you're gonna add in Super Android 13, then you would also want to add in the characters that were featured prominently throughout the movie, as well as make up the components of that said character. And that's exactly what 14 and 15 are. Villainous androids created by Dr. Zero's supercomputer that faced off against the Z Fighters and would later be absorbed by 13 after being destroyed. And I'm very surprised that these guys have yet to be included in any new Dragon Ball Z fighting games, let alone Sparking Zero. And I know you guys are going to argue that, hey, maybe it's because they're generic attackers that had limited move sets compared to the more iconic villains. And to a certain extent, I do think that is true. Their role in the movie is primarily to fight briefly and then be absorbed by Android 13, limiting their narrative or gameplay significance. But what I'm not going to let you do is act like these guys didn't give the Z Fighters that work, because they absolutely did that and then some, until Vegeta and Trunks decided to dial it up a notch by transforming into Super Saiyans. And it wouldn't be like Spike Chunoft would have to dig deep and figure out how to make these characters unique enough to add into Sparking Zero, since they've already done it before in Raging Blast 2. Not only would these characters be great additions that would complete the Super Android 13 roster, but they could also benefit Super Android 13 on the battlefield. Since the character is a byproduct of fusion, you can allow 14 and 15 to fuse with Android 13 to become Super Android 13 and receive these stat boosts, similar to how they're doing with Super Android 17. But moving on, the next fighter that I have is Tarble, who just so happens to be Vegeta's younger brother, and for whatever reason, this guy is not only left out of fighting games, but he's also not acknowledged as much in the Dragon Ball Z shows and manga. The guy's only made one actual appearance, and that's in Yo Son Goku and Friends Returns, but he hasn't been seen since. Like, I'm not sure if it's just me, but it always felt like they replaced this guy with Kaba since he has a similar aesthetic and overall personality. But there have been multiple examples of the studio going out of their way to let us know that Tarble does exist and is canon through brief mentions in Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, as well as Dragon Ball Super Broly. While this guy was nothing to write home about in regards to his fighting and capabilities, I did find his moveset fun, especially his ultimate attack, which is called the round UFO attack, where he uses his Saiyan space pod with a remote control to attack you. I can see him having some very fun and unique interactions with Vegeta, as well as some of the other Saiyans from Universe 6, particularly that of Kaba, who, as I mentioned earlier, looks an awful lot like Tarble. But moving on, the next characters I have are Dore and Naze. As you guys are aware, this latest DLC looks to be paying major love to Cooler's revenge with super moves as well as the addition of Salsa, and I couldn't be any more excited for that. But I feel like Spike Chunoft needs to stop playing with us and go ahead and release the rest of the Cooler's Armor Squad, because I feel like they're in a similar category of Android 14 and 15 where they always get overlooked in all of the fighting games as well, even though they contributed to some of the most amazing fights in the Dragon Ball Z movies. You have Naze, who's basically like this slithery Snape type character that moves very fun and fluid, and then you have Dore, who's basically like the powerhouse, similar to what we got with Raccoon. While their fighting capabilities were for the most part limited in the movie, they did showcase a few cool moves, such as Dore's terrible flash attack, which I hope gets a revamp to properly match what we saw in the movie, where instead of seeing Dore go on an all-out assault, we see the entire Cooler Armor Squadron do it. But moving on, the last and final character that I have that should be brought back from Raging Blast 2 would have to be Hatchiaak. I hope I said that name right. But yeah, when I first saw this character, I was blown away. As a guy that usually kept up with everything Dragon Ball Z and actually had some of the VHSs from the 90s, I was completely shocked when I first discovered Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans, because it completely flew under my radar. And I'm pretty sure there are fans just like me who first witnessed him on YouTube in something like an AMV or even a distorted looking clip, only to later discover that this OVA served as an official guide to a video game, particularly an animated walkthrough of some sort. It came out in 1993 and will remain exclusive to Japan until it received a remake in 2010 and released in Dragon Ball Raging Blast 2. And in all honesty, I would not mind seeing it be reintroduced in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, because despite it being reintroduced over here in the West in Raging Blast 2, not that many people got to experience it, but a lot of people have picked up DBSZ and they would experience it this time around. One of the things that I find the most cool about Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans is that it's actually the first thing to introduce the concept of the Tuffles getting revenge against the Saiyan race, way before it was used in Dragon Ball GT with Baby. Like, this guy was way ahead of his time, and I feel like people don't talk about him enough. But one of the things that I really enjoy about Hatchiaak is the fact that he doubles as a powerhouse and a energy absorber type character. His signature move, the Revenger Cannon, which charges for 15 seconds, acts as a high damage long range finisher, while his rapid charge counter allows him to deflect attacks and counter with a punch barrage. The guy is a literal tank, and if Spike Chunoft ever does put him in the game, I don't necessarily know how they can one-up themselves from what they did in Raging Blast 2. The most they can do is probably give him some dramatic camera angles to spruce up the attacks and make them look even more unique, but these moves were already awesome in RB2. But anyways, there were a couple of other characters that I was going to mention, but I realized that one of them has already been reintroduced in Sparking Zero, which is Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, and it's because of that fact that many fans have asked if they can include Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, then why can't they do the same for Super Saiyan 3 Broly that was also in Raging Blast 2. But like I always say, context is everything, and it just happened to be the perfect timing for Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, since he would make his official canonical debut in Dragon Ball Daima. Like, if any new forms are going to be introduced in a new Dragon Ball related show, then this was going to be the perfect time for Bandai Namco to capitalize off of that, which is why we not only got adult Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, but also Kid Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta or Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta Mini. So in case we see Super Saiyan 3 Broly show up in a future Dragon Ball related project, then chances are they're not going to include his version from Raging Blast 2. I personally feel like it would be a waste of time to include him anyway, since from an aesthetic standpoint he looks cool, but it doesn't necessarily bring anything else to the table. He's just Broly with Super Saiyan 3 hair, and that's about it. But I'm pretty sure there are going to be those fans out there that really desire him, and if Spike Chunoft had any sense and they really wanted to make money, they would just include him later on down the line. I just feel like there are other more important versions of Broly that should be included, such as Second Coming Broly and Bio Broly, who I do plan on going in depth on in a later video. Like, this is just a video I wanted to make pointing out some of the Raging Blast 2 characters that I feel like should make a return, since they are technically Tenkaichi related type characters. But that's all I got for you guys today. Be on the lookout for my second video where I talk about characters from the original Dragon Ball series that haven't been brought over from the previous Tenkaichi games, as well as DB characters who have yet to step foot in any any Tenkaichi/Sparking game. But what do you think about this? Do you feel like these RB characters should be acknowledged, or do you feel like they should be left in their old respective game? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. But if you really enjoyed this video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it with all your friends and followers on all the different communities and platforms. Sharing really makes a difference. But this is RBG, aka the Random Black Gamer, signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.